It's a lot more fun to look for exceptions when things are happening, then things are working, than the big problems, because that gives you a toehold. That's all you need.
We have a very special episode for you today. We talk every week about how to bring solution-focused approach to helping you be more healthy and resilient. But this week is different. This week, we want to talk about how you apply this evidence-based solution-focused approach to behavior change at scale for leaders and organizations. How do you move groups of people to not only be more healthy and resilient, but to make a scalable impact across a broad range of goals? But first, be sure to hit the like and subscribe button so you don't miss these invaluable practical insights. And if you can, please share it with someone you know who could benefit. We really appreciate it. All right, Dr. Teplow, you just got back from Ghana in West Africa. What were you doing there?
I was having a great time. That's what I was doing. Yeah. So how I got there is really interesting. I had a student a long time ago who was a retired World Health Organization senior analyst, and she took our coaching training. She loved it. She went away didn't hear from her for a few years. She came back and said, "You've got to look into this organization. They're doing exactly what you are at scale." So I said, "Oh, okay. What organization?" She gave me the name. I signed up for what I thought was a little workshop. It was a 6-month intensive training, and there were 2 of us. So I got fantastic training in a process for creating social change at scale. And there's an approach which is called SALT. So we say, be salty, and SALT stands for support, appreciate, learn, and transfer. So we're always looking at what works, asking curious questions of people to keep learning from them about what's working. We appreciate it, and then we share it and transfer. So that's the approach. The process is called a community life competence process, and it is very parallel to our solution-focused approach.
In what
And
way?
so it starts with, first of all, what makes us all human? So being curious about each other. What's important to you? What do you really value? What are you proud of? That's kind of a couple of questions that help us see we are all human. And I will talk about that a little bit later when I tell you about this trip to Ghana. And it was my 3rd, by the way. Um, so I got a job several years ago. So I learned about this approach and this process. And you said what way? I'm sorry. Said what way? It starts with what's human. And then the second thing, the question is not, oh, so what's your problem? Or how can you fix it? It's, what is your dream? And we're talking about not, what's quote realistic, but we're talking about when, in your absolutely, ideal future, what would that look like? What would you be doing? And it's a shared dream when you're working at scale. It's not just, well, I want this and you want that, so we'll compromise. You get 6 of that, I get 6 of that. There's no compromise. It's for the organization. What can we all sign on to wholeheartedly? So it takes a long time. It can take a long time to really establish our shared dream. And that process of grappling with what our dream is, what life would be like when things are better for all of us, it's already in and of itself a learning process. And then we go from the dream to the next thing is not, oh, what can we do to reach the dream? As I said, it parallels solution focus. It's, what are we already doing?
So let's ask to start of the dream part. Let me stop there for a second, because that is, what you said when you're grappling with that dream, there's already transformation happening in the grappling with it. Even if you just did the grappling part of the dream part, you're already benefiting the organization. You're already moving the organization forward just by asking that question and being curious, and then grappling.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because you're moving from what the problem is and what's making us all miserable to something that is energizing and motivational, because we see possibilities. And the grappling is really all of the possibilities. That is, as you said, it is an intervention in and of itself before you've even said, oh, what can we do?
Right. And when you're doing this, what challenges are happening in that process of this dream? And we have our mission and vision in most organizations. We have a mission and vision. How do you see, one? My first question is, what did you see in with SALT and working with the organization in Ghana as what was happening in this grappling, and then what did you and then how do you think that relates to a mission and vision of an organization, the
Oh,
dream?
man, that's a hard question.
Yeah, I know, but but that's where we're coming from. That's a frame of reference for most leaders and organizations is we have this mission
Absolutely.
and vision, and often it's written and put on and then put on the wall or put to the side, and it doesn't feel lived. And I think that's really where I'm seeing this dream as different is because the grappling helps it feel more intrinsic.
Absolutely. So I'm going to answer that in a couple of ways. One is in Ghana, even through the 3 times I've been there, I didn't see that grappling because the organization that I was working with already had done that grappling 10 years ago. However, I led an international group during COVID, and so it was Zoom, and there was a lot of grappling. And I'll tell you what, one of the biggest issues was in that grappling, and that we really had to move beyond that, is that people were focused on the strategy. Well, we
Mm,
have, if we
kept
want
falling back
this,
into it.
yeah, yeah. And they actually had a shared dream that, worked. It was okay. But where they got stuck is with making assumptions about what they had to do to make that dream happen. And so it was, okay, we all agree we want to, spread peace throughout the world. Therefore, we have to do X. And so it was hard to come back to, wait a second, what do we mean by peace? What will everybody be doing? Really asking what we've called in this podcast the what and how questions to make it real. It's not enough to be vague. We want this organization to be productive. Okay, what are we going to do? You have to
Right.
know, you have to be able to explain. And
So
teeny weeny.
too often we go from this abstract dream to right into some type of execution. That's where our brain seems to fall into. And what we do individually at Stamina Lab with our clients, and what we're saying as an organization is to really explore what those words mean at an individual level, and what would they be doing, and how would you be doing that in that shared dream?
Absolutely. So the truth telling question is, can you draw a picture of it? Because
Ah,
we can say, oh, I want to be brave. I want to be bold. Okay. Well, what does that look like? Well, I'd be confident. Okay. Can you draw a picture? And it was fun because
did you do that
there
activity? Did you do a draw the picture activity?
we did it in a certain way. We did it with movement because I would say, because some of the people I worked with wanted to be confident. And so I acted out, does this look confident? I had hat on and I was kind of slumping along and no. Okay. Well, so does this look confident? Yes. And then it said, okay, what do you notice that tells you this is confident? Eye contact, strong voice, clear, good posture. It was a good example of how the level of detail you have to get down to. Yeah. So
So
I was, mhm,
okay, so I was gonna say now, so when you were you're moving from the dream now, you said you hinted a little bit at this, is that you are now looking at what you're already doing in the organization that is part of that dream. And this connects to what we say individually when we imagine this future and what difference this will make for us individually. Then we ask, we want to know where in our lives are we already doing some of this, even in the smallest way. And applies at an organization level.
absolutely. And so I did work with several schools, and not only I worked with several schools, both teachers and students. And that was super fun because I did the same thing. The solution focused practice applies to anybody, everybody, any situation and all ages because we're all human and we all want better lives. We want to get along. We want to be happy. Those are universal. And that was very clear, even in Ghana, in very poor communities where they don't even have running water or, it's dirt roads and haul water from a cistern.
Yeah, and I think that's important to note too, because what we're this evidence based approach has thousands of research studies, 100 meta analysis about how it impacts change, and it's used in leadership organizations across Europe and into the United States, and we've seen it over and over, for with hundreds and hundreds of our clients that we've worked with, that it leads to lasting change, and what the reason that this story about your trip to Ghana is so important is to show that even high end companies in Europe and United States, yeah, okay, yes, that seems like it worked, but this also applies, like you said, and to small towns and villages in West Africa, and that's what makes it so universal. This approach so universally appealing is
Yeah.
because it feels at a human level, no matter where you are.
Yeah. And let me add that this SALT, CLCP, so support, appreciate, learn, transfer, and CLCP is community life competence process. So you start what makes us human. What's our dream? What are we doing? What do we need to do now? And then we do self-assessment. And this SALT CLCP approach and process is exactly parallel to solution focused practice, which generally has been done with individuals in across Europe. It's being done in organizations and with leadership development. What's cool is SALT CLCP is used around the world, mostly in developing countries. It's used there are about, I think, 3,000 trained facilitators, and I'm one of them. And it's been used in hundreds of communities from um, all around the world to do things like help elderly people stay home, age in place, reduce malaria, clean up horrific plastic trash around islands in the South Pacific, worked a lot in India and in Europe, center of European capitals. One project was to help settle refugees. This was during COVID, and it works
Yeah,
because we're asked.
and then in the case of organizations, this it gives a leadership style that focuses on what's already working, the progress that people are making, and the future possibilities, that dream that you have, and that's the stance the leadership style brings to the table, and the team dynamics that it fosters is that psychological safety that everybody keeps talking about and wants to have, and the feedback isn't given in a way that just feels very empowering and gives some agency to the person receiving the feedback. And everyone has a shared ownership. And this really is effective for agile teams and cross-functional collaboration at organizations. And I think that's why this is so important for anyone who's listening to understand, because you can apply this to your performance reviews and to your smoother change management, conflict resolution, and even agile and scrum teams, which are so iterative in the iterative retrospective empowerment process of software development and product development. So we were talking about the Ghana story and how you're applying it all around the world, but I really want to continue to share how this connects to organizations everywhere.
Absolutely. And you said something really, really important, and that's ownership. Because so often, especially in organizations, it's easy to say, it's not my problem or look for whom to blame. And so we don't own the problem. We also don't own the solution. Well, I can't do it because so and so. But here it helps people really take responsibility, own the problem. But that's not really the emphasis. Problem exists, but it's to own how we move forward and how we build a strong, agile organization into the future.
So we're not going to be able to teach this and share everything that goes on with it, but I wanted to continue to map out a little bit of the framework again. So we talked about the shared dream. Now we're looking into the organization for where we're already doing some of the things that model that shared dream. And could you say a little bit more about that next stage?
Yeah. Yeah. Super important is what's already working, even a little bit. And it really doesn't matter how small it is. It matters that it works even a little bit, because that reinforces that something is possible. People can get really down, really discouraged. It'll never work. Nothing's ever worked. And that's our, negativity bias. And then of course, then we have our confirmation bias, because if we think nothing works, then whatever, then we're going to be looking. See, I told you it doesn't work. That's the confirmation bias. Yeah. So we're looking for those exceptions. We tease. Nobody's perfect. Nobody does their problem perfectly. So even though you may have problems, there are times when it's not as severe. You may miss deadlines, but maybe you didn't miss the deadline by a week. Maybe you only missed it by, an hour or a day, whatever. You want to look at what's going right, even a little bit, because that tells you what you're capable of. We can do it. Maybe not perfectly, but we can do it better than the worst. And then how do you use it? You have to use the what and how questions and drill down to the teeniest detail because those open the doors for thinking of possibilities. It doesn't mean because it worked one time, you could want to reuse it. This is not like rinse and repeat. You might choose to use it, you may not, but what it reveals is that you are capable of effective action.
There's an example that we have. We're working with a fitness studio in Singapore, and what stood out was, yeah, we're helping their team be able to apply this to their individual work with their clients, but also from the management perspective. One of the challenges that came up was, how do we staff the different needs that we have? Looking at, the feedback we got was, oh no, I started applying this to say, well, were we able to staff this effectively or even a little bit better? And what were we doing then? And how are we doing that? And I think that really just stood out to me, that says, oh, not only can this be applied for the individual trainers and coaches to use it with their clients, but also the management team was able to use it to say, how can we when were we doing this at least a little bit better?
Yeah. Yeah, and I wanted to I have a really quick story from Ghana because I was working with teachers and they had problems with, discipline problems, whatever. And I said, "Okay, well, I want you to take your worst students. Think of your very, very worst student. Now, tell me 5 things that bad student is doing that's actually serving them to do better in school." It's like, this kid's a loser. What are they possibly doing? One teacher said, no, it was a hard question. They said, they're getting up out of bed, they're getting dressed, they come to school. Not only do they come to school, well, do they come to school early? No, do they come to school on time? And this teacher said, in fact, that kid I'm thinking of, he actually comes to school early. And then they said, oh, well, he brings his books. So it shifted their mindset completely. And it's a lot more fun to look for exceptions when things are happening, then things are working, than the big problems, because that gives you a toehold. That's all you need.
And
And
that's
so then
totally was it. To tell me, and then that toehold, how did you expect that to play out then, or did they talk about how that might have played out later, maybe from one of your previous visits? How did something like that then change their perspective and how they interact with that bad student, or we can say bad team member, anything? Yeah.
changes a lot because it changes how you view the lens you view the person through. Again, it's that negativity bias and confirmation bias. So when I know, oh, they're bad, they're lazy, whatever, everything, it's through that lens I see them lazy. And I realize, well, they do come on time. They are present for every meeting. They never call in sick. Okay, they may not do this, but they do that. And so then you have, then you start to appreciate what they do. You're more apt to look at what is working. And I think it's also a humbling experience. So one thing that happened is that for both teachers and teachers, I did a lot of coaching with teachers and teachers as a faculty of a school. And when the teachers wanted help with their students, these students that are very challenging to us, they're teens, they're supposed to be challenging, right? But they challenge us, or these teens, those kids. After a coaching with them, all of the teachers to a person said, recognize what they could change
Hmm.
instead of just, how do I get my student to do this or make my student? We have that as managers, right? As leaders. How do I get my employees to, and it comes out to, wait, what can I do? What will I be doing differently when it's again, owning the problem and owning the solution. And it was pretty awesome. What's an example is they cane students in Ghana. I learned what a cane is. It's a skinny little branch. It's about that long. They just, whack them with it. And one teacher, we go through this little process. He said, I realize I don't have to cane my students anymore. I can be curious about what they want and what's important to them. It's a huge shift.
Yeah. And then how the person responds to that shifts significantly.
Absolutely.
Now I feel like I'm empowered, and I even know I know where I'm not living up to my potential, that dream, that shared dream. I feel part of that still. I'm now not excluded from it. I still feel part of it, and therefore I feel intrinsic motivation to continue to improve and build upon what I'm already doing.
Yeah. And another thing is looking for what works and also planting the seed. So,
Yeah, that was something that came up in one of our recent things that I thought was really valuable because people would ask, like, I can't think of anything that I've been doing better. And that was planting the seed was a key part of that.
yeah, exactly. And so I said, in terms of faculty meetings, plant the seed is at the end of our meeting, let's each share what we noticed that told us we were cooperating. Sometimes we have a hard time with that, but let's just look for those tiny moments because then we'll share at the end. And then, of course, just keep in mind what we'll be doing differently, even a little better at our next meeting that helps it go more easily, more cooperatively. That's again a mindset shift, and it's refreshing. People feel good.
So, is there anything that you wanted to share from this experience that we didn't talk about that you think that is so valuable and applicable for teams and organizations and leaders that they could take away from this approach and this process, or anything that you wanted to share that we haven't talked about as we come to the end here?
I think the what's really important is getting down, so having that idea of what you want, what will be happening when things get better, is getting down to the nitty gritty. When you're writing the notes, is it going to be with a pen and paper? Is it going to be on your digital? Which digital? And the other thing, for teams, that I'm trying to think. Give me a moment. Think when you use this approach, this kind of shared dream, what are we already doing? What will we be doing when things are going better in that better future? Everybody feels happier and the energy shifts. It's palpable and people remember it. It's enduring. It's not just a momentary flash in the pan because people have experienced it and viscerally, cognitively, behaviorally makes a difference.
I think that's important because I lots of lots of management experts and philosophies are centered around culture driving an organization, culture driving change within an organizational change. And when you feel that shared dream and that hope and joy in the process, not every day is going to be easy. And not every day, but when you have that to latch onto, when you have that connection, that's what keeps that motivation. That's what drives you through that change and those subtle conversations in between where you are still looking for the times when things are going better, even in the smallest way. That's the foothold that you need to get through the choppy waters of the river. So I didn't want to really pull that out from it's where the culture comes together in that joy as you framed it.
Yeah, in fact, we had such a powerful session with the teachers, and they really they really felt how they could work together in a more productive way, more collaborative. And they made the point, and I reinforced it, that they could model this approach and they would be leaders in the whole community of teachers, not just far beyond their school. They could be a role model for other schools because they had this sense we can do it. It can be hard, but we do it together and we're heading in the direction that has meaning for us and that shapes the future generation. That was cool.
And that sounds like a fantastic and perfect place for us to wrap up. If today's episode resonated with you, and if you're ready to move beyond just the willpower of change and align your behavior change with your identity, whether it's your individual identity or that dream of the organization, we invite you to join us inside Stamina Lab, where whether it's through our core health group coaching program, our training program for leaders, professionals and medical professionals, or one of our 14-day health quest. We're here to help you become the person or organization you're already on the path to being. Just by listening to this podcast, you're already on that path. So also please hit like and subscribe. I said it at the beginning because we talk about these kind of strategies, solution focused, evidence based strategies. This gives you the foundation to feel confident in you because this is evidence based over thousands of research studies, again, 100 meta analysis over 40 some years, that this approach works for change, whether it's individually or within your organization. We talk about that every week. So hit like and subscribe so you don't miss that. We have some fantastic quizzes and assessments that you can take that help you shift your mindset into the solution focused approach. So looking for those into the comments. And if you want to learn more about this unique approach, go complimentary coaching session with us by visiting staminalab.io. Leave your questions and comments below. We love to answer those. Thank you, Dr. Teplow. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Until next time, remember, you are your own lab, you are your own experiment, and you are your own best coach. Be well.